Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Sports Illustrated beat writer covering the Las Vegas Raiders and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to be with you today. It's just going to be us today, no guests. I'm going to be digging in on several questions that you all have emailed into me. I'm really looking forward to answering them. As you know, I did an article yesterday answering many of your questions, and we got a bunch more today. Really good. I want to really say this up front. Majority of them are very good questions, very great questions. And here's how you get a question on the program. First of all, and this is from the staff, so this will help you. Don't send us a long, laborious email. We're not. If it's long, it just gets deleted. And if it gets too many, you keep sending too many. One a week. More than that, deleted. Then I guess somebody sent one, and I don't know who it was. They didn't tell me, with accompanying video materials and all that. We get so many emails. It's not that we don't want to. We do not have the time to watch videos or read emails. Next, people, I guess we had several people send me emails this week. I don't know if I would use the term arguing. I didn't read them all, but I disagree with you about Aiden O'Connell being a starter. Here's why. Prove me wrong. Well, this isn't a debate show. And I appreciate your opinion, and I respect him. I have said we don't know if he's QB1, but we haven't seen enough to rule him out, and you have to roll with that until you know. So I've not said he was that, but that's not what this show is. It's not a debate show. So I don't mean that to minimize your thoughts. That's just not what we do. So anyways, that I'm just explaining. So if you want your emails, keep them short, keep them pithy. I would not go over 2 paragraphs, but probably 3 would be the max, I would guess. Don't read them all, but I know those that do. And we want to get them on. Now, if we get a bunch related to one topic, then we'll put it on the program, and they take usually the first one that came in about it. So let's get right in. We got a ton of them today, and most of them are really super good. So let's get at it. The first one says, Hondo, during the press conferences, several players made comments to someone to the left of the podium that they didn't like their hat. Not on my team. Others, could you please, and others, could you please explain what the exchanges were about? Thank you, Jason Beaver in Portland, Oregon. We got so many about this. Yeah, Thayer Menford is an Ohio State graduate. One of the members of the media is a Michigan grad, and they're wearing a Michigan hat. So it's the old Ohio State Michigan rivalry. And by the way, I won't say who the person is. I don't know. I don't think they would care, but I just won't do it. Next comes from Johnny S. Hondo, thank you again for the great content and taking time to answer questions. As a fan, having a resource like you is amazing. My question is with Getsy and his offense. I was looking through games from last season and noted with Justin Fields that his higher percentage plays they had involved a tight end and a fullback and a pass into pass block and running 2-man routes. Do you feel this was primarily due to the confidence in the on the O line, or does he prefer to keep passing situations simplified for the QB? Aiden showed signs of being able to go through his reads the last couple of games, and with our weapons, I was worried we would be holding ourselves back if we don't trust Aiden to make those progressions. Again, thank you for all you do, Johnny S. Well, Johnny, I've said this many, many times. You have to, when you're a coordinator, you have to go within the scheme of the head coach, and you have to go with the scheme of the personnel. He didn't have a ton of weapons there, and he had a terrible offensive line. So I think you're reading more into the Bears than what you're going to see from the Raiders. Next one comes to us from Dennis Harper. Hondo, I really never email anyone ever, but I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed. What would it take for the Raiders to get Malik Willis from the Titans could you put a bug in AP's ear for me, as I think this is the QB he needs. The guy is super stud, not unlike Michael Vick, uh, uh, not unlike the Michael Vick mold. Tell me what you think, Dennis Harper. Well, a couple of things, Dennis. First of all, I'm a very big I like Malik Willis. I have no idea if he's a QB1 in this league. The team he's with that picked him obviously didn't think so because they took a quarterback the next year. I think the Raiders did the right thing. They went in and they kept Aiden. They brought in an experienced guy to back him up who could compete with him. And they went and added a rookie. I could have totally seen it, but what are you going to pay for him? The Titans invested, a high pick in him. And you got to remember, other teams have to be willing to trade. And I think that the Titans would trade, but I think the cost would be very high. And based upon the body of work that we've seen from him, I'm not sure that price is worth it. I've heard a lot of people say, what about Hendon Hooker? Well, you just signed Jared Goff to a big deal with the Raiders. I know the previous regime really liked Hendon. I'm not sure about this one. But I know the Lions don't want to move on from him. So it's not only just going to get a guy. It's like last week somebody asked about, paying bank or bag for Dak Prescott. Okay, well, has he shown that he's worth bag? I think the Raiders did a smart move the way they're doing it. They got Aiden on a 4th-round deal. They got Gardner on a big deal for a 1 year on a backup, but it's an easy deal to get away from in year 2 if Aiden becomes what they think he is. And if he doesn't and Gardner performs well, they got him on the cheap for year 2. So I think the Raiders really have themselves in a good spot. But I'm a guy that would be intrigued in Willis also at the right price. Next, from Bill T. Hi, Hondo. It seems going into this year, the second most important coach will be the new QB coach, Rich. Which with a young QB room, it will be up to him mainly to develop these guys in competitive, smart, and supportive bunch. Not sure if you agree with this assessment, but can you discuss it? Yeah, I don't know that I would say he's the second most important coach. Getsy, primarily offensive coordinators spend a ton of time with their quarterbacks. The quarterback coach works a lot on technique, which I think is important, but Gardner and Aiden have really good technique. Do I think he's important? I do. Don't think he's the second most, but I do think he is very important. Next, this comes to us from Eddie. Eddie, I'm just going to say the last name, the letter C, because I can't pronounce that. Swellar or Qualar or QLR. Sorry, with a name like Hondo, I've been called Honda, Hondu, all kinds of stuff. I really like to get people's name right. So Eddie, I apologize that I got your name wrong, and that's why Eddie C from Riverbank, California. I know it's unprecedented and distant thought, but why can't a team with 2 quality quarterbacks like we have with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew platoon the 2 of them on a regular basis this season? If they have enough reps with the offense, the players should be able to adapt and play comfortable with both quarterbacks. That will cause more headaches for the defenses as they now have to focus on 2 different quarterbacks for each series in a game. I know it's not normal for the NFL, but the Raiders have been not normal in the Al Davis era many times and have brought in new mentalities to the league. What are your thoughts on this, Eddie? Eddie, bad idea. The only time I've seen a 2 quarterback set work was with Tim Tebow in college. And it wasn't rotating. It was very set, very set playbook. There's an old saying in the NFL, and I think it's true in college too. If you have more than one quarterback, you don't have a quarterback at all. You need that guy. You need it because there are different cadences, there are different plays, Um, their quarterbacks read things differently. I'll give you a quick one. So when Brett Favre was the quarterback of the Packers, I have a friend that was an offensive lineman. And when Brett left and Aaron took over, he was still there. And I asked him, was it pretty seamless? He goes, seamless? He goes, Brett would call out in this order, left to right, and Aaron calls out right to left. And I'm making that up. I don't know. I'm not going to say the particulars of where he said that were different in case it gives away any scheme. And Brett would call this, and they would use different audibles. He goes, they were completely different. And he goes, man, if Aaron ever came in, it was brutal. Not because he didn't like Aaron, but because of adjustments. No, it's extremely difficult. And I don't think it's wise. You can have a package, but I don't think it's wise at all. But I appreciate your email. Thank you, buddy. Hondo, a few weeks ago, and it may have been longer than that, you recommended a book, said every guy should read it, every woman should read it. You said it was a tremendous book that would help men to understand themselves and the men in their lives, and would help women understand the men in their lives. I just found out I'm going to be a dad. I regret I didn't write the book down. Can you recommend the book to me again? Yes, I can. It's by John Eldredge. It's called Wild at Heart. Every man should read this book. Now, I am not a paid endorser, but I have bought hundreds of copies of this book. And it'll help men understand who you are. It'll help men understand the women understand the men in their life. It's a phenomenal book. I give it as a wedding present when I go to weddings. I constantly give it away. It's graduation, all that stuff. Phenomenal book, Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. Highly recommend it. Life-changing book. I read it every January, and you will love it. Next, Hondo. I have high hopes for the Raiders D this year. If they perform like they should, I can see Patrick Graham getting head coach job next year. Since I have been listening to the show, you have been talking very highly of Patrick Graham. And after hearing Marvin Lewis do the same, it seems inevitable that he'll soon be a head coach. Are there any assistant defensive coaches you could see being promoted if Graham were to leave, or do you think they would look outside the organization for a replacement? Yes, there are several. There are some really good coaches on this staff. Very good. I think there's a couple of guys that I could see getting promoted for sure. And I know some guys that I think would come here with AP for a coordinator's position. Well, I know there are. So I could see him going both routes, but there's some really good coaches on this staff. And I think that there are several that have potential and opportunities to be really good coaches. Next one comes to us from Dylan. Nope, not Dylan. Delon, D-E-L-O-N, Delon, and Delon is in Bakersfield, California. Delon says, Dear Hondo, I have an interesting question for you. I don't remember when, but you told a story about a GM telling you how he reviews all the position coaches with coach. I don't remember all the finite details, but I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine. Could I please get you to re-explain it? Thanks, Delon. Yeah, very simple. So I have a friend who is a general manager in this league, and he would sit down every year and evaluate his head coach. And then he would sit down and say to the head coach, how many people want to hire your staff? And if the coach says nobody, then he would say, okay, do we need to replace them and get something better? Or is there a reason people don't want them? Now, sometimes it's because a coach is older and they don't think they'll move because they're comfortable. Sometimes it's a coach that has a great relationship and a friendship with the head coach. Whatever. For example, I don't think Marvin Lewis would go anywhere else to be an assistant head coach or a coordinator. He's very close to AP. He likes where he's at. And and so this general manager told me if they said, no, I don't think there's anything keeping him here, then he would say, if they don't want him, why don't I? And this general manager said something that I thought was very powerful. He said, I want every year to have the highest priced staff because that means we've got guys we have to keep paying more because they're in demand. And if they're in demand, it's because they're doing a good job. He said, teams that like to go cheap on assistant coaches, he goes, I would never want to be a GM of those teams because the best teams understand I want to pay my guys the very best. Now, you're still going to lose them for head coaching jobs, but you're not moving them for lateral moves and that kind of stuff. I thought that was very, very very powerful. Next comes to us from Neil A. Given that Max Crosby plays at such an incredibly high tempo, is he at risk for burnout? How many seasons can he put his body through 17 games of punishment? Are the Raiders effectively in a win now scenario as no player can continue to play with such a high standard and continue to be on a losing team? I'm worried his motivation will drop and he will seek a trade to a winning team. Lord knows he doesn't. He deserves to play the postseason on a regular basis. Thanks for the podcast and all the Raiders info every day, Neil A. Neil, I've addressed this many, many times. They are in win now. If they weren't, Devontae wouldn't be here. There would have been other guys traded as well, but they're in win now. I think as long as Max continues to eat well and take care of his body, he gets plenty of rest. As long as his motivation stays where it's at, I think he could play a long time. A long time. I'm not worried about burnout with Max. I think you make a very, very germane point about if he continues to be on a loser because he wants to win. He's a winner. I don't think we're there, but I think that could be a problem down the road, but I don't see it as one now. And I think the Raiders are going to be winners. So there you go. Next, hello, Hondo. With Patrick. Okay, this email is from Colin M. in Lubbock. Hello, Hondo. With Patrick Mahomes quarterbacking the Chiefs likely for the next 10 years, and Andy Reid resigning to coach for at least 6 of those, how can the Raiders ever overtake their dominance? Are we stuck in a situation like the AFC East teams when Belichick and Brady ruled the division for like 17 seasons? How can the Raiders overtake the Chiefs' stranglehold on the division? I'm not going to read anymore. Just, I'd love to hear your take, Colin in Lubbock, Texas. Did you see the Christmas Day game? Did you watch the game at Allegiant where they should have won Raiders? Colin, I am not a Raider fan. But so many of your fan base, because of the last 20 years, acts like you're always a bridesmaid, never a bride. You're the freaking Raiders. Teams are supposed to be afraid of you, not, oh, they signed Patrick Mahomes to 10 more years and Andy Reid for 6, Hondo. Win. Win. Go up to Arrowhead and pop them in the face again. Win. Go out and spend bag on Christian Wilkins. Develop a team along the trenches where Patrick Mahomes says, oh my God, I got to face these guys for 10 more years. It's remembering you're the Raiders. Colin, I'm not mad at you and I'm not making fun of you. I don't know your age, but I would bet you're relatively young. You're the Raiders. You're the Las freaking Vegas Raiders. The mentality of this team now, you have AP, is other teams don't want to play us. Did you hear Andy Reid talking about the Raiders smacked them around on Christmas Day? They beat them up. The Raiders are in their head. Now, they're still the champions, and they deserve all the respect. I have no issue with the respect you're putting on them. I have issues with the poor, pitiful Pearl, with the, I know, what about the Raiders? When's anybody going to ask the Chiefs? What about the Raiders? Did you not see what they did to Jason Kelsey, and he's throwing his helmet and acting like a jackass? Did you not see their from K? I was there in Arrowhead. I was in the locker room. I was there when the players walked off the field under the stadium. I was there when their fans booed them. I was there. Is it Dexter's out in the thing going boo? I was there. I watched that stadium empty. I watched with Nickelodeon and the nation. Nearly 50 million people watched the smackdown that the Raiders put on them. I watched the frustration. They could do nothing against the silver and black defense and Patrick Graham's merry band of misfits. Saw it with my own eyes. Brother, do you remember the movie The Lion King? When Simba's dad dies and he's like, ugh, and he looks in the water and he sees the reflection of his father, and his father says, remember who you are. You are the freaking Raiders. That's who you are. Now, I'm old. I grew up in the cornfields of Michigan, in Langsburg, Michigan, and the Christmas trees of Cadillac, Michigan. I remember watching the old school Raiders because you knew it was going to be a beating. With Taylor Swift in the building and Swifties aplenty watching, the Raiders walked in and said, excuse me. Oh, brother. Come on now. Remember who you are. Remember who your coach is. Remember, you are Raider Nation. Come on now. Should we be worried? No! They should. You took a brand of physical football into Arrowhead that none of them have experienced. That was old school Raider football. Man, you could just, if you would have closed your eyes and just listened to the pads, the popping of the pads, you could have almost heard the ghosts of Alzado, Christensen. I mean, it was Hendricks. It was, Howie Long, Matt Millen, Lester Hayes, Mike Haynes. It was old school. Gene Upshaw. It was Art Shell. Double O. Jim Otto. It was old school Raider football. They got their butts beat up. Raiders are going to lose some games this year. But I'm going to tell you one thing that every one of you better get this down in your silver and black heart, and I'm not even a fan. But you better get this down in your heart. There will be teams that beat the Raiders this year, but they're going to feel it the rest of the year. when the Chiefs played the Raiders, Raiders should have won that. They lost that game. The Chiefs didn't beat them at Allegiant. I give them credit. I'm not saying they cheated or it wasn't the refs. The Raiders gave that game away. But that was a physical football game. And when they played on Christmas Day, the Chiefs were still feeling it. You got a Raider team fueled by pain. Remember that old Mr. T in the Rocky movie? What do you predict for this fight? Pain. Hondo, what do you predict for the 17 Raider games? Pain. It's old school football, man. That's what it's about. You think Christian Wilkins came here? Would you like any Grey Poupon, Patrick? No! He came to say, give me the Grey Poupon, because today I feast on Mahomes. You think Patrick Graham and his merry band of misfits? And by the way, they call themselves the Misfits, so don't send me stupid emails. It's time to change the nickname. They call themselves that, so shut up. Don't send me any emails. I'm just going to block you if you do. Stupid. They call themselves the Misfits. I love that. Max Crosby ain't a first rounder. Jack Jones was cut off a team. They didn't want him. There's a bunch of guys on this roster other people didn't want. But the Raiders did. Patrick Graham did. Antonio Pierce did. Tom Telesco does. It's a merry band of misfits coming to destroy and make your life miserable and your body in pain. I'll tell you what, if I was Advil, I would hire all of the 2024 Las Vegas Raiders defense as my spokesman. Hi, I'm Max Crosby. We're coming to your town on Black Friday to play the Chiefs. I suggest you go out and buy some Advil, sponsored by the Raiders. Oh, that's fantastic. That's funny. I mean, no. Should we be afraid? Let me read it again. I'm going to make sure I read it. With Patrick Mahomes quarterback in the Chiefs likely for the next 10 years and Andy Reid here for 6 of the last of those years, how can the Raiders ever overtake their dominance? Win. Simple. I thought you were a Raider fan. Just win, baby. You go in there and smack them in the face. I hear people all the time say, we got to have an offense to match it. No, you got a defense that beats them up and an offense that says, we're going to strike you. We're going to play hard, physical football. Let me tell you something, and I learned this a long, long time ago. Finesse players are great players, athletic players. I'm Devontae Adams, great player. Kobe Myers, great player. I'm not saying those guys aren't great. But a lot of those guys don't like to get their head torn off. The Raiders revel in it. I saw Max get smacked last year in a beautiful tackle. I remember asking him about it. He goes, yeah, you got my fire going. He liked it. These guys love it. You know, there's an old Olivia Newton-John song. I want to get physical. I mean, that's Raider football. How do you stop the dominance? You beat them up. Beat them up. You're the Raiders, man. You're the Raiders. Remember that. I know the last 20 years, they've given you a lot of reasons. But dadgummit, it's not AP's fault. He hasn't been here the whole 20. Tom Telesco hasn't been here the whole 20. Max Crosby hasn't been here the whole 20. Aiden O'Connell hasn't been here the whole 20. Devontae Adams, ain't none of them been here the whole 20. And they're coming. And they're coming. And they're bringing the Advil. For you. And I'm so excited about the season. Don't you just love the game of football? Isn't it just fun? We just gather around this little campfire that we call the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. We should probably be roasting marshmallows or cooking some hot dogs over the open fire. And we just gather for this daily convocation, this daily campfire, talking all things silver and black. Pinch me. Pinch me. What a great time I get to spend with you all. Thank you for spending time with me talking ball. Love it. Next, Michael B. from Charlotte. Hondo, hi, hope you're well. My question is, how do the Raiders handle the competition between players and still keep a family environment? Background. I understand all NFL players understand NFL stands not for long. I also stand to understand that other NFL teams have a different approach as well. Just want to hear about my beloved Raiders' way of handling the question. Go Raiders, Michael B. from Charlotte. Great question. Great question. So a couple of things. First of all, everybody knows they're competing, and so there is a competition, no doubt. But you can compete with people who are high competitors. Nick Saban says this a lot, and I think Nick says a lot of brilliant things. I have tremendous respect for Nick. Him and Terry are precious people, and I respect them greatly. But Nick says high achievers can't stand mediocre people, and mediocre people hate high achievers. I agree with him. So you can have a lot of guys around that you really respect. Now let me go back to the Chiefs rivalry. Patrick Mahomes has tremendous respect for Max Crosby, but Max Crosby does Patrick Mahomes. Now I hear a lot of people talking about the Chiefs in disrespectful ways. You don't have to like them; they're a rival. Tom Izzo, the Hall of Fame basketball coach at Michigan State, one time I heard him say it would have benefited Michigan State. I think Michigan State would have won a Big Ten title if Michigan had won the last game of the year. And someone asked him, are you rooting for Michigan? He goes, no. But if they win, you win the Big Ten title. He goes, it's un-American to root for your rival. I get that. I understand the hostility, and I don't want the hostility to go anywhere. But it doesn't mean you don't have respect. I mean, put some respect on that Chiefs name. They're where you want to be. They're there. I think Andy Reid's the best coach in the NFL. I think Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. I think they got some holes, but because they have those two guys are the best, I think they're able to cover a lot of holes. I have tremendous respect for the Chiefs. So you can have respect for people you compete with and say, you know what? I respect them. I respect them. They do it right. And it doesn't mean that you're a jerk. Doesn't mean that you do things dirty. So, and because they're together all the time, when you go get people who are hard workers, it's just like other media. There's some of the other media that cover the Raiders I'm friends with. We compete against each other, but we're friends. Doesn't keep me one bit from being their friends. Now, there are some that I think probably don't care all that much for me because I compete with them and think that we hold our own. But majority, we all get along really well. Good guys. Good guys. And I think that's the deal. How do you keep it a family? Have you ever competed with your brothers? And maybe you don't have any siblings. Man, my brothers Scott and Greg, we competed at everything. We fought at everything. I'll never forget one time, though, they were older. My brother Scott graduated from high school when I was in third grade. And all of us kids were out playing, the whole neighborhood comes together to play tackle football at the Blastics. Still there, had a yard, an empty yard next to their house. And we played football. And this guy hit me pretty hard. And here comes my older brother who hit me a lot harder. Hey, don't mess with my little brother. So I think it's that. Do they compete? Yes. But hard workers respect hard. I can't stand lazy people. I have zero patience for lazy people. Zero patience. at all. I don't want to help lazy people. I have no respect for lazy people. I don't like lazy people. They are mediocre at best, and I consider myself a high achiever. I don't want to be around mediocre people who take shortcuts. I like guys that are dads, man, and they come home and they're exhausted and they still find a way to get on the floor and play Matchbox cars before their kids go to bed. Why? Because being a dad matters to them. They just don't go crack a beer and plop in front of a TV and ignore that there's a bunch of people in that house they haven't seen all day. They're constant. I like people who are high achiever. I like people who work hard. I have so many people say to me, "Why do you do a podcast every day, Hondo?" Well, who wouldn't want to join Raider Nation around a campfire and talk Raider football? Because I'm supposed to be the insider. I'm the beat writer. I have plenty of information to bring you podcasts every single day. And that's what I do every day because I have enough. Why? Because this is what I do. So that's how. You just have a great group of people who work hard. They have a ton of respect. It's a respectful atmosphere, and you compete. And I'm going to tell you, if you're a competitor and you lose to somebody who outworked you, you don't like losing, but you can live with that. Or you find a way to dig deeper and come back the next day and whoop them. Now, Hondo, hope you're well. My question is, oh, wait, that was already, I just answered that one. Next, from Steve M in Texas. Hondo, good day, Hondo. Do you think with the proliferation of illegal betting, with all the NFL having will the NFL have a gambling scandal? Could you foresee a player or players or officials succumbing to wagering on NFL games? Not to be a conspiracy theorist, but have you ever wondered if the games are fixed? Do you think it's already occurring and a major scandal could unravel before our eyes or in the near future? I really think this is the one issue that could crush the NFL. I would love your thoughts on this subject. Hondo, take care. Stephen N. in Texas. Well, first of all, we have talked about this. John Shop and I go back and watch a lot of the podcasts. We have dealt from early last year all the way through the year and into this year. We've talked about gambling a lot. I've talked about it a couple of weeks ago with Coach Walsh. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on there other than this. Gambling issues have struck a lot of sports. Netflix had a story on Donaghy, the NBA ref, which I thought was fascinating. I know too many players. I do not think that there's a conspiracy for players as a whole to throw something. And I know a lot of refs. I don't think there's any conspiracy there. However, do I think there are times when a player does something or a ref does something that you think either it's gambling induced because they're trying to fix something, or could someone possibly have told them to do something? I think that's feasible, although I have no evidence or proof. I have been told by many people who I trust, from managers to not general managers, but actual managers to support staff, to coaches, to players, to executives. There are times they certainly think some things are fishy, but they think it's more of maybe one person doing something fishy. They don't think it's a holistically wide. That being said, do I think it could be a scandal? Well, yeah, because anytime you have humans, that's a potential. When you have humans in gambling, that's a potential. But the NFL sold out for the cash, and that's what they get to reap. Now let's keep going. Hondo, I watch your podcast not to hear you quote encourage unquote people. You want to be a psychiatrist? Then do that. Keep the feel good crap out of your podcast, Neil A. Now, Neil went on to say several other things that I wouldn't read on the podcast. Now, you may know this, you may not, but yesterday on the podcast, about once a month, I try to just let everybody know how much I appreciate him and how much you matter. And Neil, I want to say this. This is my platform. It's not yours. This isn't a communist country. There's no gun to your head that makes you watch me. But if in order to gain listeners, I have to be who I'm not, then I have no desire to gain anyone if I have to be fake. If I have to stop being an encourager of people, if I have to stop using my platform speaking to tens of thousands of people to just let them know I'm encouraging you. If that offends you, go somewhere else. I've got tens of thousands of listeners. And if it offends you so bad that you think you're going to tell me to shut up on my podcast, go somewhere else. Simple. But I have no desire to change who I am because I know who I am. I know all my faults better than anybody. Everyone. I don't encourage people or occasionally talk about Christ because I think everyone else is bad. I talk about it because I know I am. And if I can encourage somebody who's having a bad day and that sets you off. Now, let me read this next email because this is why I do it. Dear Mr. Carpenter, I want to thank you for your well wishes on the last podcast. I met my wife in 7th grade. We married out of high school, and we had 3 wonderful children. I thought we were the happiest of family. She divorced me last year when she met an older man who had money. She told me that she was more tired of being a struggling middle-class mom than she needed love with me. My kids have enjoyed and been blessed by his wealth, and the things I cannot do for them, I am not mad at them for enjoying with him their children. 1 month ago, I found out I have bladder cancer. I have been really down and was considering giving up. The only thing that brings me joy is the Raiders. It is a very tough day, and I just needed to hear someone tell me I mattered and it was going to be okay. I don't need you to read this on the show. I just saw someone in the comments telling you to shut the F up, and I wanted you to know, please don't. You may not be a Raider fan, but you care about and for Raider Nation, and that means a lot. I listen every day. Today meant more. You don't know me, but I feel like you're my friend. And every day when I turn into the podcast, it's the only time of my day that I get to put aside the loss of my wife, who I adore, and my children not around much, and my cancer, and the hours I work to pay child support. I just feel like I get to talk about the thing that makes me happy with the Raiders with my friend Hondo. I'm not his name because I don't want to embarrass him. But I want to tell you something, buddy. I think you're my friend too. Every single day, my wife and I thank God for Raider Nation. Precious people. Raider Nation is made up of people that are healthy and people that aren't. Like you, buddy. Raider Nation is made up of people who are happily married and those who are sadly divorced. Raider Nation is made up of every ethnic group, men and women, rich and poor, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. It's made up of Americans and Brazilians and Filipinos and Russians and the British and every other nationality. It's made up of apostolic people of faith and atheists. It's made up of Episcopalians and Lutherans, Baptists, Orthodox Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, and those that just say, I'm agnostic, I don't care. And I'm going to tell you something. If I've learned one thing about Raider Nation in the 5 years that I've covered them, it's you got a lot of people out there that think you're a friend too. And you do matter. And there are a lot of things in my life that I have to be grateful for. And I am. And one of them, truly and sincerely, is you. God bless you, buddy. I'm sorry. Sorry. But I'll tell you what, as long as I got breath and I'm covering this team, I'll join you back here every single day where you can have your beverage of choice. Today I got grape drink. Give me a cheers. And we'll just hang out like buddies. And we'll talk Raiders. And we'll have a good time. And to all of you, I'm grateful for you. God bless you. Thank you for joining me. You sure don't have to. But man, I'm blessed. And I'm glad you do. Y'all have a good day.